The smoke had barely cleared from the battlefield when Arya found them, three small trembling forms huddled beneath their father's massive body. Rokan, the great Vexalian warrior, lay motionless, his obsidian scales still warm, his clawed hand stretched protectively over his young. The battle had been brutal, a clash between territorial raiders and the peaceful settlement where Arya served as a xenobiologist. Rokan had fought alone against 12 attackers, buying time for the colony's evacuation. He had won, but at the ultimate cost. Arya knelt beside the fallen warrior, her heart heavy with grief. She had known Rokan for 3 standard years, had studied his species, learned their language, shared meals during cultural exchanges. The Vexalians were feared across 7 sectors, reptilian predators standing 9 feet tall, with strength that could bend steel and reflexes that made them nearly impossible to defeat in combat. But Rokan had been different. He had been curious, gentle with those smaller than himself, and deeply devoted to his 3 cubs after their mother's death in childbirth. Now those cubs, each no larger than a human toddler, stared at Arya with luminescent golden eyes filled with terror and confusion. The eldest, barely 2 years old, hissed defensively, tiny fangs bared. The youngest simply whimpered, a sound that transcended species. "I won't hurt you," Arya whispered in halting Vexalian, her human tongue struggling with the guttural consonants. Your father was brave. He saved us all." The decision formed in her mind before she fully realized she was making it. The colony's evacuation shuttles were already gone. The next transport wouldn't arrive for 6 days. These cubs couldn't survive alone, not in this hostile wilderness, not without their father's protection. And even when help arrived, what then? Vexalian society was rigid, hierarchical. Orphaned cubs were considered weak, often cast out or relegated to servitude. Arya had spent her entire adult life studying alien species, always maintaining professional distance, always observing from behind the safety of scientific objectivity. But as she looked into those frightened golden eyes, something ancient and deeply human stirred within her, an instinct that transcended species, culture, and the cold logic of interstellar protocols. She gathered the cubs carefully, wrapping them in thermal blankets from her emergency kit. They struggled initially, snapping and clawing, but exhaustion and trauma had weakened them. The youngest burrowed against her chest, seeking warmth. The eldest continued to watch her with suspicious eyes but didn't pull away. The next 6 days tested Arya in ways she'd never imagined. Vexalian cubs required a protein-rich diet. She synthesized what she could from emergency rations and foraged supplements. They needed heat, specific mineral supplements, and constant vigilance. The raiders might return. Native predators prowled at night. And the cubs themselves, despite their size, possessed surprising strength and razor-sharp claws. But Arya persevered with a determination that surprised even herself. She learned to read their body language, to distinguish between hungry chirps and distressed hisses. She sang to them, human lullabies that meant nothing to their alien ears but seemed to soothe them nonetheless. She cleaned their wounds, regulated their temperature, and kept watch through long, terrifying nights. The eldest cub, whom she named Kethryn in Rokan's honor, slowly began to trust her. On the 4th night, he brought her a small creature he'd caught, a gift, an offering, a sign of acceptance. Arya's eyes filled with tears as she understood the significance. When the transport finally arrived, the rescue team found a sight that would become legendary across human space. A small human woman sitting cross-legged in the ruins, 3 Vexalian cubs curled around her like scaled deadly puppies, all of them sleeping peacefully in the morning sun. The colonial administrator was less moved. "Dr. Arya, you cannot seriously intend to—" "I'm taking them to Earth," Arya interrupted, her voice steel. "They're orphans. I'm adopting them. That's unprecedented. The Vexalian government won't allow—" "The Vexalian government abandoned them," Arya snapped. "Their customs would see these cubs enslaved or killed. I'm invoking Article 7 of the Sentient Protection Act. These children are under my guardianship." The legal battle lasted 8 months. Vexalian officials were outraged. Human bureaucrats were bewildered. Xenobiologists debated the psychological implications. But Arya stood firm, and slowly, surprisingly, public opinion shifted in her favor. Humans across the galaxy saw in her something quintessentially human, the ability to love beyond boundaries, to protect the vulnerable regardless of origin. The Vexalian government finally relented when Kethrin himself, now able to speak Standard, addressed the Interspecies Council. "She is my mother," he said simply, his child's voice carrying unexpected dignity. "She stayed when others fled. She fed us when we hungered. She protected us when we feared. This is what mothers do." Arya raised them on Earth in a specialized habitat that accommodated their needs. She taught them about both their Vexalian heritage and human culture. She faced prejudice, fear, and countless challenges. Neighbors complained. Schools refused admission. But Arya adapted, fought, and persevered. Years later, when Kethrin stood as the first Vexalian ambassador to Earth, when his siblings became renowned warriors who fought for humanity rather than against it, when other species began to question their own prejudices about cross-species guardianship, it all traced back to one human woman's choice. On that smoky battlefield, Arya had seen past scales and claws, past reputation and fear. She had seen children who needed a mother, and in doing so, she had exemplified what made humanity remarkable. Not their strength or technology, but their capacity for compassion that transcended all boundaries. Rokan had died to save them all, but Arya had lived to prove that family was more than blood, that love required no genetic similarity, and that humanity's greatest weapon was its refusal to abandon those who needed them most.